What's going on, everybody? So today we want to go over some of the things within multi-class driving that we've all seen and that everything pertains. So there's some things we'll be going over some videos. We'll be going over some basic things that we need to kind of keep in mind when we're doing multi-class racing, and hopefully you guys can gain some knowledge about this, and we'll get better with driving standards, and we'll have more fun in the series. And again, all the stuff that I'm talking about, I'm somewhat generalizing it to all multi-class racing, so that way you can use it not only within DGFX but also within other series. So as we get started, before we start looking at videos, there's 7 things that I want to cover and kind of talk about before we do anything and before we really get into the videos and the heart of it. So the first thing is you got to keep in mind, in order to finish first, you must first finish. Too often in multi-class racing, we see guys that are overly aggressive. Perfect example is in the last DGFX race at Silverstone. We had about, I don't know, we were just over half an hour, right around a half hour into the race, and we had the leaders going 3 wide on the second time around, passing cars 30 minutes into a 4-hour race. They're driving and being super aggressive as if it were the last 3 laps of the race when there's still 3.5 hours left to go. And if you want to be able to finish first and have a good result, you got to have a clean car, and you have to be able to first finish the race. If a sprinter, Usain Bolt, if he wanted to win the Olympics, he had to be able to run before he can sprint, and he had to be able to jog before he can run, and he had to be able to walk before he can jog. So again, you got to be able to finish the race first before you can start thinking about good results. The second thing is that we need to get this mindset that multi-class racing is not about who is the fastest. It's about who can manage the traffic the best and lose the least amount of time doing so. No matter what you do, you will always lose time in multi-class racing. That's what's unique about multi-class racing, is the traffic, the different class cars, the interaction. And it doesn't matter if you're the fastest car or not. In multi-class racing, you don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be the smartest in being able to lose the least amount of time doing so. So if you can manage the traffic better and figure out what is the best way to lose the least amount of time, then you're going to be able to finish best results. If we look back at Sebring, I'm not sure, not Sebring, but this season of DGFX, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can guarantee you that more often than not, the fastest car in each class most likely didn't win the race. So, third thing, no single class car or cars race is more important than another's, whether you're racing in prototype or whether you're racing in a GT class. Prototype class is not more important as far as their race than on the prototype class car is not more important than a GT's class race. Everybody's out there and everybody's going on. Everybody has something going on. We're all here to race. Everybody is racing. So you can't sit there and say, I'm in an immediate battle with somebody. My race is more important, so everybody else has to get out of the way to yield to me. That's not true, because the other people are in the same boat as you. While they might not have a car directly in front of them, they're still racing. They're there on track. Their race is just as important as your race. Next thing, number 4, is that all drivers need to know and understand the handling characteristics of the other cars on track. Prototypes are what they are. They're prototypes. They're not production cars. They are prototypes. They are built to do one thing and one thing only, and that is go fast. Is that you have to understand that a GT car, it doesn't handle like a prototype does. So it is going to understeer a lot. A prototype, GT cars, a prototype, you have to understand that a prototype has a lot of downforce. So it can pass and go through corners a lot faster than what you may think. So therefore it might be able to make certain passes in certain areas without affecting your race. But you don't really know what's going on until you've been able to understand the characteristics of the other cars on track. The my spotter wasn't working in iRacing excuse is one of the most common used excuses that I have heard in race control. It's one of the worst excuses and would never be seen as a viable reason for contact in either a sim or real world race. In real world race, my spotter wasn't working. That's happened to them before. It's called when their radio goes out and they're all alone on their track. You don't need a spotter in order to race. If you're out driving on a freeway or a highway or an expressway, whatever you may call it on whatever country you're in, you don't have a spotter. All you have are your own two eyeballs and the mirrors and you looking around. You gotta think that if you're not going to rely on a spotter when you're driving in real life, why would you rely on a spotter when you're racing on track? In all honesty, racing on track is is easier than racing in real life, because at least on track, everybody's going in the same distance or in the same direction. Everybody's going around the same corners. You know where a car's turning. You know generally where a car's going to brake. You don't have, driving with a bunch of strangers and you have no idea, are they braking? Are they turning at the next corner? Are they turning at the next light? What are they doing at the next intersection? Are they on their phone? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? Racing is easier in that sense that you at least have some sort of idea of what everybody is doing as far as where they're going to go. So the my spotter wasn't working excuse, don't even bother with it because it's not viable. 6, this is not F1. Blue flags do not mean get out of the way immediately. Blue flags are informational only. Now, does that mean that blue flags should be ignored? Not at all. You got to think, blue flags are signaling to the slower class cars that you have a faster car approaching. Should you hold up that faster car? No. Should you block the faster car? No. But the faster car needs to understand that the slower car is not just going to jump out of the way. It's just saying, hey, there's a car coming. Make sure you don't impede it and help facilitate a clean pass as soon and as safely as possible. The last one I'm going to cover a little bit more after this, but it's one of the most important ones that I think everybody needs to get their head around on this, is that the fastest class on track is the most important class for setting the benchmark for driving standards. Simply put, the reason for this is because it is the class that does the most passing on track. And I've got stats to back this up. Okay, you have to understand the fastest car will pass everybody else multiple times, and they are going to be doing the most passing. When you look at the slowest class, the only passes that they're really going to be doing in class are that it's within class. So if you're in a slower class, the only classes that you're going to, or cars you're going to be passing, are the ones that are in your own class. So let's go on. We're going to take that and kind of expand on it, and we're going to take a look at Sebring, for example. The 6 hours of Sebring that we did. Okay, so there's 21,600 seconds in a 6-hour race. There's the math. You can do it on your own if you don't believe me or anything like that. All right. For an HPD, if we're just saying it's 110-second lap time, so a minute 50 lap time, and for argument's sake, just to make things simpler here, we're saying there's no cautions, and that's the same lap that they're running at each and every single lap. And again, this is just to make it clear. Okay, we have 22 cars in the HPD field, and they're running 110-second lap times. GTEs, we have 21 cars in class. They're doing 118 seconds per lap, and the Porsches, they're doing 126 seconds per lap. All right, so if we do and just find out how many laps they would run in a 6-hour race, and again, no, we're not taking into consideration cautions, we're not taking into consideration pit stops, any of that sort of stuff. So 21,600 seconds divided by 110, it's easy, 197 laps. For GTEs, you're doing 184 laps, 13 less than the prototypes. For the Porsches, they're doing 172 laps, which is 25 less than the prototypes, 12 laps less than the GTEs. All right. So the HPD to the Porsche, this is where you're going to figure it out. So for each car for each HPD, a Porsche will have been passed by each HPD 25 times in that times frame of a race. Now, if you have 22 HPDs on track, that means that one Porsche will be passed 550 times in a 6-hour race by HPDs alone. You do the math further on that, that equates to a Porsche being passed by an HPD once every 5.3 corners. which is essentially right around, at Sebring at least, just around 3 passes a lap. Okay? For GTE, it's 286 passes by HPDs in a race. You know, it's the same thing. It's about once every lap, about, for the HPD. Okay? And then you go GTE to Porsche, it's 252 passes made by GTEs on each Porsche. So you can see just right there by the last sentence in each of those that the HPDs does the most passing. When we elaborate more on this, we have the HPD has to make a total of 836 passes on slower class cars alone during a 6-hour race. This equates to having to make a pass once every 4 corners for 6 hours straight. So if you're making a pass once every 4 corners for 6 hours straight, there's no argument saying that you're not the car that is setting the standard for driving. You know, you're setting the benchmark for driving standards because you're simply the class that is doing the most passes. Plain and simple. So now that we kind of have that on our realm and our knowledge, sorry, can't talk, but let's take a look at some of the incidents. And now you're going to say, oh, well, yeah, a lot of the incidents that you're saying are HPDs. Well, we just did the math. HPDs are the most important. This is why you look on the forums on iRacing, you look in our series, you look at this, you look at that. Everybody says, oh, well, you know, the HPD ruins a series. The HPD needs to do this. The HPD needs to do that. The prototype does this. They can't pass. They do this. They do that. Well, it's simple. They're the ones doing the most of the passing. HPD drivers say, oh, well, you know, if the Porsches were doing better and they weren't, you know, being so aggressive and this, and that, then it wouldn't be so hard and be so easy, okay? HPD drivers, put yourself in the Porsche shoes, okay? If 1 out of every 10 passes made by an HPD car over that course of that race was a dive bomb or a super aggressive move and crazy, for a Porsche driver, that's 55 passes are being made where it's super aggressive. If you have 55 passes being made on a Porsche as an HPD driver that's super aggressive, that Porsche driver is going to be very irate that now he has to drive defensively and he's not going to do it. So that's why you got to understand, the nicer you are to the slower class cars, the more you give to the slower class cars, the more that they are going to give to you. Those work hand in hand. So let's take a look at some of our videos that we have. Now, I went back and we're taking a look at some of the videos that we have from our prologue race. Now, everything that we have here is from the last 20 to 30 minutes in the first lobby of our prologue race. So it's at Lime Rock. Now, what I've got to say is that I didn't even get every single incident that was in here, but there's a lot of videos. After this, we have a video that one of our members put together and that wanted me to look at, so I'll be showing that afterwards as well. So I'm just going to go through each one. I might have to watch it once just to remind myself of what it is, and then we'll go from there. But this situation, it's the restart as soon as we go to green flag. So when we have this prototype right in the front, is simply going on the restart and they're going to attempt to pass this. Now you have this whole traffic jam right here going up here, and you know that at Lime Rock as a driver that any pass on the outside of this would be what, turn 3, is not really a wise decision. Okay, so if we watch this going into the corner, you're 2 car lengths back with a craziness in front of you. Why attempt to pass on the outside? Why go crazy inside and then you make contact, the ghost contact there? So we back it up a little. Again, this is just the over aggressiveness. Now you've spun, now you get hit, now you've ruined it for a few people. So if we go back, we'll go back a little more, sorry. You got to think, okay, you make this pass, you might save a tenth or 2. But if it goes wrong, which statistically is showing that this would probably go wrong more than it will go right, you're going to spin. So that tenth or two that you might just have saved, you've now lost 4, 5, 6 or more seconds to do that. It's just over aggressive on the situation here. What should the driver should have done? It's the restart of a race. It's the restart. We're going to the green flag. Just stay behind. Fall in line. Let things settle out. You don't need to do it multiple times. Okay? Oh, you got to be kidding me. All right. Okay. When we have the next situation. So you have a Ferrari coming up on 3 Porsches going up the hill. Now, Ferrari does a good thing by not trying to make a pass. This Porsche, not sure if he is trying to pass the next one, but what he is doing and what he could be doing is using his car to signal, hey, don't pass going into this corner. Perfectly fine. To answer your question on the comments, yes, this is all the prologue race 1, and this is all within the last 20 minutes of that prologue race 1. Okay, so we're heading into this corner. He does a great job. Does not show it. Does not try to peek. Does not make that awkward situation by putting his car over on the right. He falls in behind because that's the fastest line through the corner. He gives himself a little bit of time to back off so that he can accelerate through the corner, if this will actually go, and he can now get a pass and make a run on it. Okay? Does he do something else? He slots right in. Ideally, it'd be nice if he was over to the left, but again, he's not trying to force an issue. So that is a very good pass that was made. And what does he do? Again, a little aggressive here if it plays, but 3 wide, he has the brakes to do it. Now, this is where the GT cars need to give a little more. The slowest class cars. Slower class, you see and you know that you are 3 wide with 2 other cars. Why would you brake at your normal braking point right here or just before it? You have 2 cars to the inside. You need to brake and then slot in behind him. Now you're braking at the latest possible point. You're not going to make the corner. And then you continue to turn into another car. This is that situational awareness. And this people will say, oh, well, my spotter didn't tell me there. I don't care. As a driver, you need to take responsibility and know what is around you and who is around you. If you're not running the virtual mirror, run the virtual mirror. Well, it's not realistic. It doesn't matter. You have less field of view on a sim, regardless if you're using triples, if you're using singles, or if you're using VR. You have less field of view on sim than you do in real life. Use your virtual mirror. It'll help you out, I promise you. Okay? So that's scenario number 1. There's the first incident. Alright, we'll go to the second incident. See if it goes cleaner with this one. Porsche. This is right behind these cars here. Alright? Same scenario, same situation we just looked at, but just behind it. So the first Porsche runs a little wide. I want to know what in the right mind was this Porsche trying to do go up the inside of the final corner. You know for a fact that the next corner is a single line corner. Yes, that guy's going slow, but you're not going to be folding alongside by the time that you hit the braking zone or turn in. The line that you chose to take, when you look at where it's going, I mean, right now you're already at the outside. If you didn't hit the car and the car wasn't there with that line, you would be all the way at the exit on track out. There's no way you would have been able to leave enough room. That's just overly aggressive driving. Yes, I know you want to capitalize on it, but not a bright idea, not a way to be able to do it, not the smartest thing to do. So you got to just, again, be less aggressive, more trying to keep the car clean. Be patient. Next situation. As you can see here, we have nobody behind directly. I started it this way, that way you can see. We have nobody directly behind the car in front of you, or behind the car that we're watching. So, slow moving car on track. He knows that he's going to have to go over. you're going to have eventually a prototype passing here where 3 wide is basically just a CF going into turn 1. So this Porsche or this Ferrari should now say, okay, I have nobody behind me. I got a car inside. I have a lot of Porsches in front of me. I have a lot of cars in front of me. Best thing for this guy to do, back off, take the possible loss of position if they're battling for position, and slot in behind. But instead, he tries to brake earlier, doesn't account for this Porsche having to brake earlier than what he's used to. He might be only concerned with this car on his left and this car on his right, rather than who's directly in front of him, because he might be battling them for position. That causes him to brake late, rear ends that Porsche, and because he rear ends that Porsche, we have not just one, but 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 cars are going to get taken out because of that. All because the driver was being overly aggressive. Okay? So again, this situation, read it, anticipate. Nothing is good is going to come from you by trying to force the issue on this corner. Back out, brake early, keep your car clean. In order to finish first, you must first finish and slot in behind. If you do that, not only will your race not be ended, not only will you not have damage, not only will you not be penalized, but you didn't just ruin the race of 4 other teams. Next corner. Okay, this is the Porsche that I want to refer to. Ferrari doing a good job. He's alongside. He can get up to the long slide by the time we get to turn point. This is not a dive bomb at all. Porsche needs to be aware that he's there. What could the Porsche do? Brake slightly earlier than normal. Okay, what he would be able to do by braking slightly earlier than normal is then by the time that he does start to turn in where they're at right now, the Porsche could slot in behind the Ferrari and then hit the apex and carry more speed through the corner. Okay, so the driver doesn't do that. Perfectly fine, doesn't have to. So what should he do? Not turn into the car that's right next to him. Be more aware of who is around you and what is around you. My spotter wasn't working. I don't care. It is not up to your spotter to determine where you put the car. That's very tough. Very tough for anything to go in favor of the Porsche in that situation. Next one. I think this was just 2 cars behind. All right. We're looking at this prototype here. If I think this is what it is. Oh, play. Where's that prototype going? This is going to lead into a perfect example, okay? So many times I hear, and we all hear, prototype drivers saying GTs need to be predictable and hold their line. Well, that GT car is being predictable and is on the racing line. What is he doing? He's on the racing line. He's turning into the corner. Did he turn in like maybe a car too soon? Possibly, but who knows? That's still close enough to being on the racing line. All right. Now we have prototype drivers also saying, oh, well, he left the door open. No, he didn't. You can't tell a driver to hold their racing line and then dive up the inside when they're on the racing line still and say that the door was open. No, that's not how it works. Okay, in no world in this corner are you going to make this pass happen from this far back. I don't care what you are, I don't care who you are, it ain't going to happen. This is 100% the fault of the HPD's driver. This is overly aggressive. This is when you have to think, okay, take it easy. Don't try to do anything bad. Don't dive up to the inside. I need to finish the race first. Okay? Porsche is on the racing line. He is going to turn into the corner. The Porsche, as soon as he is committed, cannot change corner and direction as fast as you are. If you want the Porsche to hold the racing line, let him hold the racing line. If you cannot get alongside of him by a car length before the turn-in point, you shouldn't be making a pass. You just got to stop being so aggressive. That is 100% the HPD's fault, not the GT driver's fault. Okay, next video. And those of you who are watching, if you have questions at all, ask. I got another screen. So this is more just general sort of driving, not calling it on HPD or anything. We in race control cannot see if there's a local caution out. Unfortunately, with iRacing, there's no rules. They throw a local caution, but they don't penalize you if you pass under caution. But as this HPD driver, don't look right here at the two cars in front of you. Look ahead. See what's going on. See where you're going to be, not where you are, or not where you're at. Okay, you got to see, oh, I have cars spinning up here. If your spotter's not working, tough. Look ahead. If your spotter's not working, get a teammate. This is a team series. Get them to spot for you. Okay, you are slowing down, but at the same time, you got a car stopped. Go slower. If you hold up time, so what? If you lose a position or two, so what? You keep your car clean. Whereas now you're going straight in and you just T-bone another car, and your race is done. Everything that I've been getting at is less aggressive and driving safer, not being so me. It's not that me first mentality. Here's another great one. We have 3 GTEs, HPD. And this HPD needs to be looking ahead up here, not right in front of him, and know who's around him. And in all honesty, this HPD, he is 2.5 to 3 car lengths behind the Ferrari. If he passes this Ferrari on corner entry, it is going to be very, very tough, and it's going to be looking bad on his fault. What he should be doing is ideally saying, oh, this prototype is going to pass him, the door will be open, let's slot in behind this prototype and pass the Ferrari mid-corner. That is ideally what would happen in this situation. What does he do? Tries to dive late, tries to get up the inside of him at corner entry, goes in too late, and rear ends that prototype, sends himself, the Ferrari, who's an innocent bystander, and everything spinning. Overly aggressive. Next video. Driver situation. Can you get along this Ferrari by the time you get to corner entry on the next corner? No, not a chance. So stay behind it. Don't try to dive up to the inside. Because you can also tell by that line that you took, there's again no way that you are going to leave a lane outside for the car that you are attempting to pass. And you just ruined that car's race. You sent him into the tire barrier and ruined his race. Okay? The Ferrari does a good job. The Ferrari is not on the racing line. He is off the racing line. He's positioning his car to the right. He's basically saying, hey, HPD, faster class car in this case, do not pass me going into this corner. So the HPD just needs to slot in, understand, yes, I can lose a little bit of time, but so what? My car's still clean and I didn't get penalized for taking somebody else out. Overly aggressive pass. Same thing. Overly aggressive pass. Okay? Ideal situation here, HPD. You pass the first one. You're not going to pass the second one before corner entry. There's a gap. Worst case scenario, you're too wide with this car going into corner entry. Best case scenario, you basically slot in right between the two through corner entry, pass the second Porsche on exit. So right here, slot in between the two. You don't even have to slide over, just stay there and brake. So that way you don't hit them, don't try to pass, and now you're going in. Nothing wrong doing with what that Porsche did, and nothing wrong doing with the yellow Porsche. Everything is on the prototype faster car. That is not a corner from where you were to pass. The door is open. No, it's not. He's on the racing line. And there you go. Again, ruin somebody else's race. Okay, GT interaction. So again, it's not always the faster class. All right. Empty Box in his videos has a great video that says it's that awkward moment where a car signals like he's going to pass and then never does, and then all of a sudden you're going through there and it's just weird of like, is he going to pass, is he not? And then you lose more time because you were possibly attempting a pass that you shouldn't have been attempting and you don't even do it. So if you're not going to be able to make this pass here, which in all honesty this Ferrari is not going to get around this Porsche going on in this corner, don't move over to the right. Stay behind him. As soon as you put your car off to the right, you are signaling that you want to pass. If you are going to pass, then pass. If you are not going to pass, stay behind him. Okay, car positioning and where you place your car on track and everything is huge in terms of signaling to other drivers what you want to do. So, great. Ferrari moves over. This is directly behind the one that we just saw. Even if this was a Ferrari moving over to not allow him to pass, then that Ferrari should have done it way earlier, not at the last minute. HPD passes or falls in behind. Perfect. Now, I record it for a reason. Still somewhat aggressive, but he showed himself early. This is a clean pass. Showed himself early to the Ferrari. Ferrari understood it, wasn't blocking. Again, still somewhat aggressive, on the verge, but both parties accepted it. You know, this is the GT. The GT does a good job of realizing the situation, saying, okay, he is there. Even though that it's somewhat aggressive pass, I want to finish the race. So I'm going to open the door and allow him to pass, even though that he really shouldn't have been there. I'm looking after myself and myself only, not others. I want to finish the race. But again, everything with that situation, great. Now we're going to look at that same scenario going through that last corner from another prototype that was a couple cars back. So, you have this prototype behind 1, 2, 3 prototypes of Ferrari and the Porsche. It is very eager to say, oh, well, I should be able to pass and I can do this and I can do that. Yes, you can, but realize the situation. Don't be so aggressive. Again. And the fault of this incident, I would not put on the black one. I would put more on this red, white, and black car here. Okay? You look at this again. This red, white, black HPD is trying to be aggressive and get around this this Ferrari as fast as possible. So what does he do? Jerk to the right, right into the black and white prototype, which causes the black and white prototype to take evasive action and go to the right, which throws him right into the back of the Porsche. If this HPD was a little bit more patient and not so aggressive, let this prototype pass, you lose a position, so what? It's a game of give and take. Whatever you lose, you will gain back at some point in time, I can guarantee it. It always happens. So, what this prototype goes, let him go, and then he can just slot in behind him, rather than forcing a 3-wide scenario, forcing a prototype into another car, and just making it bad on all accounts. And even there, you can still see right here, he's not even fully alongside yet. This prototype would have been gone and in front and probably up in this area if he just let him go through. But now, because he was over aggressive trying to get around this Ferrari, he now took out 2 other cars. All right, we got a Ford. One more time. Porsche, again, turning in on the car. The Ford fully establishes itself alongside. That Ford is fully alongside, almost wheel to wheel, by the time that we do turn in. This Porsche should do one of 2 things. Not turn in as much and take a wider line, or better yet, brake slightly earlier and slot in behind the Ford. Okay, Porsche drivers, if you see cars passing you, helping facilitate the pass means braking slightly earlier than normal so you can slot in behind them, or not turning into other cars. If they are alongside of you, you cannot turn into them. Plain and simple. I'm sure you guys are probably thinking right now that, wow, there's a lot of these incidents are the exact same. Yes, they are. But the fact that they're the exact same and we're seeing them over and over and over again is telling us something. Okay, situation here. This Ferrari, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, there's room to brake slightly earlier for the gray and blue Ferrari. This Ferrari even brakes earlier, anticipating that the blue and gray Ferrari is going to brake early to slot in. But he doesn't. He tries to brake at the last minute, and then the GT cars, this is where the GT cars say, oh, well, you know, he's diving up the inside. He shouldn't have passed there. He's being too aggressive. I can't do this. That's not the case. That was a clean, legit pass. He was fully alongside you by the time that you got the turn in. You're just trying to be too aggressive and take your normal braking point, going too wide in the corner, which means you're just going to run out wide. Brake earlier because you see him passing, and you know that he's going to facilitate the pass. You know, brake earlier, maybe here, maybe before that first shadow, so before you did, let him get in front of you by the time you turn in, so that when you do turn in, you fall in right behind his rear bumper, you hit the apex, carry more speed through the corner, you don't lose as much time. Rather than running a wide line, and now you've lost a position. If you were able to brake earlier and slot in behind the prototype, hit the apex, this second Ferrari, the black and white one, would still be behind you, because you're carrying more speed through the corner. Now this Ferrari, if you are going to attempt a pass on the inside, which in all honesty, yes, you were there, but you shouldn't have. If you're going to attempt to pass on the inside, hold the inside line. You got to be able to hold the inside line. Luckily for you, you didn't hit the other Ferrari, but at the same time, you spun yourself out, you lost it because you were possibly too aggressive, making a pass that you shouldn't have tried to make. Why in the world would a prototype try to pass a Ferrari going into this corner when you have a straightaway right here that you can easily just accelerate past and go do it again on there? Why would you do that? Okay, you're not even anywhere remotely close. People say, oh, there's a little straight there. No, there's not. Use your common sense, people. You know for a fact that as soon as you're done turning left to position yourself for the next corner, you're immediately turning right. It's not really a straight. You're going straight from left to the right. I know it looks like an angry pig, but doesn't mean give you any reason for you to try to destroy it and make it go poof like you do in the game in Angry Birds. Okay? You're a car length back. Don't try to pass a car going into there. Pass them on exit. It's better to pass a car on exit than it is to pass a car on entry. 95% of the time, it's better to pass a car on exit than it is to pass on entry. Can you do it on entry? Yes. Is it safer to do it on exit? Yes. Now, again, Porsche. This is having that situational awareness, saying, oh, okay, well, you want me to hold our line. Yes, hold your line, but again, use your common sense. You know that a HPD will most likely pass you on the exit, on the inside of the exit of corners, which is what they should do. So Porsche, inside of the exit of this corner, means he's going to pass on the right. So Porsche, stick to the left. Do not turn over and do not be that stubborn guy saying, well, you told me to hold my line, so I got to hold my line. No, you don't want to do it. Okay? You just pinch that port or HPD on where he should have done it and should have made the pass perfectly clean, which caused you to spin, which caused the other HPD to spin. 100% that is the fault of the Porsche. Now, this is going into our unsafe rejoins. There's a lovely thing in iRacing called the F3 black box that we all know and love and hear everybody say before every race. Hey, use your F3, use your F3, make sure you have your F3 on. If this Porsche had his F3 on, he would know for a fact that there are cars coming and would not have pulled out right in front. This is where we would get into the unsafe rejoin. This is unsafe driving. And look, it just pulled out right in front and clipped that Ferrari. Yes, I know you're trying to get off the racing line as soon as you possibly can. But a stationary car is easier to avoid than a moving car. because a stationary car is stationary. It's not moving. You don't have to anticipate where it's going to go. If you stayed where you were at, these cars would not have hit you, and the cars that are coming up would have been able to avoid you in an easier way than having to make a second last minute effort. The reason why I say that is you look, if you see this first prototype that's coming up where the mouse cursor is, he immediately tries to pass to the driver's right, or his right of the track over on this side, but because you start to pull across, he has to then make a late dart back over to pass you where you were. Right there, he has to dart back. This prototype, situational awareness. You see car stopped in front of you, stop trying to pass. Stop trying to be so aggressive. You now took that other Porsche and you spun him out. Okay, if you see cars stopped and you see cars spun, finish the race. Keep your car clean. Don't be aggressive and make passes. I hope that I have been able to make myself somewhat clearer with all of these videos on what we're doing. Okay, again, not horrible, but horrible. You're over a car length back. To answer your question, this is a prologue race. So it is an actual race. Somewhat. Don't try to pass here. There's no reason to pass there. It's over aggressive. You're not going to get alongside. You know, I know, you're not going to get alongside. Oh, well, he opened the door. No, he didn't. That's not a door. It's opening again. He's on the racing line. Use your common sense, people. You know what the racing line is. If he's on the racing line, he's on the racing line. Okay, here, at the same time, he's already turned in. Back off. Don't get into the back of him. Now you spun him, and now all of a sudden, he's in a miserable part of the race, and now he's getting wrecked and flipped all over the place again. Just wait a half a second longer and you would have been able to pass him on corner exit. What do we have here? Oh, here we go. There's a dive bomb and a half. Okay. If you pull along to the left, don't try to make a pass. They're side by side. The Porsche has worse brakes than any of the other cars. This is going back to what we said. Understand the cars ahead of you. So it has to brake earlier than what you normally have to brake. You have to know that the Porsche is going to brake earlier than you normally brake in the prototype. You also have to anticipate that maybe this driver actually knows what he's doing and is actually braking somewhat earlier than even what he usually does to try to slot in behind this Ferrari. So that means you got to brake way earlier than you think, and you don't get caught off guard. Or if you're looking behind you to see where this guy's going, this guy at the same time. Why are you trying to pass this Porsche? Why are you trying to pass? Don't. This is too aggressive. Slot in behind. Don't be so aggressive. Don't try to pass every single car in every single corner. Some corners you just simply cannot pass in. Okay, this is the situation. Now you're at a desperate move. Oh, I got to go to the inside. That's something I've never understood with drivers. And it's probably that instinct of, I got to see if I can try to make the corner and save my car. If you're going up late and you miss your braking point, why are you going to the inside where the car is turning to? If you're trying to avoid hitting them, why not go to the outside where the car is turning away from, to where you actually have more room? But then they're like, oh, well, I'll wreck my race. Yeah, you wrecked your race already by missing your braking point and not paying attention. Okay? You're going in too late. This is 100% this HPD's fault. This HPD did too much as well. Because even though that, oh yeah, okay, the door was somewhat open by the first HPD that was overly aggressive. Yes, but I've said it before. The line that this prototype takes, he tracks out and will not leave enough room for this Porsche. If you're going to pass on the inside, make sure you leave enough room for the car on the outside. He tracks out, even with hitting him. It's just, and all of a sudden you see him rolled. 100%. Whoop, we missed it. Look at this. Oh, there's the upside down and undercarriage of a Porsche. You've ruined that car's race. because you were too aggressive. Now this driver, as the races go on, is going to be more and more pissed at prototypes because you are over aggressive. Here's a great example, at least in this corner, of something that you can do. Prototype thinks of passing, realizes, I can't do it. Play. So what does he do? He slots back in behind the Ferrari or the Ford. Does not poke his nose in there. And simply passes him on the exit. That is a textbook pass on the first car, at least. And then it goes from textbook to idiotic on the second car. And there you go, there's the result of it. But for the first pass, 100% textbook. I'm going to play it multiple times because it is textbook pass. Okay, you slot in behind. You try to make the pass. And you slot in behind. Can't do it. Pass him on the exit. Totally fine. And then you flip the light switch and you go from great thinking to idiotic thinking. Okay? He's braking early. Look at this. This is a good GT driver right now. He's saying something's about ready to go wrong because HPD drivers are going to be too aggressive and try to pass up the inside of this Porsche. Okay? HPD driver, you've got one. Do the same thing on this one. So what? You lose a little bit of time. Your car's clean and you don't wreck like what you're about ready to do by being overly aggressive. I mean, you are nowhere near trying to be able to make that quarter and make that pass. No fault on this GT, no fault on the previous GT. 100% blame goes on the HPD on that instance right there. That is why HPD drivers get their bad name, is because they keep doing crazy passes like that. Again, as I have said on multiple other incidents, you cannot say the door is open because the car is on the racing line. If the car is on the racing line, the door is not open. You can't say, oh, well, they left the door open while they were on the racing line. No, it doesn't work that way. If they leave the door open, they're not on the racing line. Okay? We go back a little bit. Oh, that's it right there. You're not alongside. You're not even fender to fender. Why try to make a pass into this corner? Slot in behind and try to get him going down on your draft or get a better exit. But no, we're going to try to throw it up in there. This car, not at fault. 100% this car's fault. You can see him getting a little sideways trying to avoid contact. But he's there. But now he's going to say, oh, well, you know, I was there and I could have helped. No, you weren't. You were not alongside of him. Plain and simple, you're not alongside. You have to be at least front wheel to rear wheel to say, okay, I was alongside of him. If you're bumper to bumper or fender to fender, that's not alongside. That's you sticking your nose where it shouldn't be. What we have here, 3 Porsches going into the corner. Great job by all of them. So this is what I mean. You hold the inside line, you leave room for the other Porsche. Now, as I said going forward, was this a bad pass? Not at all. This was a good pass. Only thing that needs to be done differently, though, is that this car needs to be able to hold his line. If you're going to be inside and you're going to go 2x2 or too wide, you have to hold your line. I know you got loose. Okay, then take a little less speed through there so you maybe don't get loose. You know, you held your line, you hip check the car on the left off the track, and even when we go out here, there's no room for another car right here. Case in point means that that was not good driving by the 81 in the yellow car. Alright, next one. Alright, so you have Ferrari, HPD, and a couple other cars coming up behind. Why in the world would you brake where you normally do? Oh, they have better brakes. Yes, but you got to think. HPD is trying to outbrake the Ferrari, which means the Ferrari should brake earlier than normal to slot in behind the HPD, which means you have to brake earlier than most so that you can not only slot in behind the HPD, but also the Ferrari that's braking earlier than normal. But you don't, which causes you to go in too hot, which causes you to lock up and almost lose it going through the corner. You do a great job keeping it under control. You do a great job of staying out wide because other cars come through. Am I saying that that is bad? No. The only thing I would say is possibly brake earlier so you can slot in behind so you're not being over aggressive. But a good example of all this for all other GT cars, doors open. If you see other cars coming up behind you, keep the door open, let them slot through. You know it can happen. Everything is good about everyone going through that corner. Other than braking a little bit earlier, which in that case he was perfectly fine. But other than that, that was a great example of what you can do. Okay? This, Ferrari, over aggressive on the Porsche. As a GT driver, you should know that GT cars understeer. You know that this Porsche is going to understeer coming off of this corner. So, what do you try to do? Oh, yeah, let's pass where the car is going to understeer to. No. Overly aggressive. Good driving by the Porsche to make sure he keeps it inside. But you're not wheel to wheel. You haven't established on the outside of the corner. Technically, that exit and that Porsche should still be able to track out. But Porsche, is doing a great job of saying in order to finish first, I must first finish. And he is looking after himself and making sure that he is not driving overly aggressive, which is why he was able to help you facilitate that pass. But Ferrari driver, way too aggressive. To answer your question, I think I'm more at it, more than that. I'm probably up to about 10,000 for how many times I've said aggressive. All right, situational awareness. HPD. Assuming nobody's behind you, I don't remember. I think you might, though. I think we might have another one. But we have Ferrari, Porsche, Porsche, Porsche. Okay? HPD. Yes, I want to get by him as much as I can so I lose the least amount of time. Understood. But that Ferrari is saying the exact same thing. So the Ferrari is trying to get past those Porsches the exact same way. So best bet for you until you get to the front straight on this track, and this is knowing the track, on this track, until you get the front straight, you're going to have to stay behind the Ferrari. The best bet is for you to most likely stay behind the Ferrari. Especially now since you had to tap the brakes. Don't try to pass. Just slot in behind the Ferrari. Okay, you got an HP behind you. So what? You do a good job. Okay? Somewhat aggressive by this car, by this HPD, but it works. He was using traffic as a pick. So, great driving here. Except for trying to make that pass going in to turn 6. I wouldn't have even attempted that because now you know that is a tight corner. You know that that's still one line. Why try to make it 3 wide? Just stay behind the Ferrari. Accept the fact that you're not going to pass. A lot of the times you're like, oh, I'm going to try to do it. No, okay, I shouldn't pass it. And now your mindset has changed to, all right, now I need to be patient. And I'm just going to wait until the straightaway to pass and let everything play out. Where it should have been that way from the get-go. I think this is the cars behind that same duo. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. So we go back, if my mouse works. The only car behind this prototype is the Ford. So keep that in mind, all right? Everything's going fine. There's that bundle that we just watched. Somewhat aggressive of a move here. Again, he has positioned himself to the right. He has not gotten back over, which to the HPD means do not pass. The GT car is telling the HPD do not pass. But he tries to pass anyway. Now here's that awkward situation to where now he thinks you're going to pass, but you're not going to pass. You stick your nose in there, and now all of a sudden it's like, is he going to pass? Is he not going to pass? If you're going to try to pass, then do it, but do it cleanly. If you're not going to try to pass, then don't stick your nose up in there. Keep behind. And then you pass on exit just like that, and it would have been even cleaner if you just stayed behind him. Now you have to look at this situation. Very, very clustered here. You've made it past this car. As long as you leave your car, or you leave enough room for him, you should be looking up here what's going on with this cluster. You should have a spotter that should be saying you got a slow moving car. You should understand that these cars are going slowly. Instead of being aggressive and trying to make moves and pass and try to, say, oh, I can gain like another position or two out of this. No, don't try to gain another position or two out of it. Try to keep your car clean. Because you try to gain another position or two, you just ruined your race. Because you were focused on the white prototype, you were focused on getting around this guy rather than what everybody was doing and keeping your car clean. So you just ruined your race, you rear-ended them, you probably ruined their race, and that's the end of that. So that's everything that we have from line walk. We're going to go into what was sent to us from Silverstone in the last race. This is one car's perspective. They gave us permission to be able to use it, and they came to us. So here we have coming out into the final corner. Again, is there a straight here? It is defined as a straight, but it's not a straight because using your common sense is saying, oh, as soon as you're done turning left, you're immediately turning right. And again, what are you going to gain by passing on the inside here? Nothing. Could you get alongside by the time you got to turn in? Because did the Porsche turn in early? Maybe. Who knows? Maybe that's what he does all the time. But if the Porsche, let's say, started turning in right here, I can guarantee you that you would not be folding alongside by the time the car started to turn in. If something like this were to be protested, this would be one of those things that now all of a sudden you are getting on the nerves of race control because crap like this should not be protested. Was it protested during the race? No. Should it be protested during the race? No, not at all. So just wait, back off, and pass them on corner exit on the inside, just like you did. Okay, next scenario. You're seeing the Porsche go to the inside, right? A Porsche and a GT car, you want them to hold their racing line and naturally track out. So, what does the Porsche do? Hey, he holds his line and naturally tracks out. Why you are thinking about passing on the outside? Not sure. Porsche didn't do anything wrong there. HBD, just note, at this point, you've committed to the outside, where you should have already committed to the inside, because at this point, from right here, that door is just going to open more and more, and you're going to be able to slot right on the inside. Okay, same scenario here. They came to us saying, let's see if we can get there. They came to us saying they left the door open. No, they didn't. They're on the racing line. You can already tell that Porsche's turning in. You're still at least half a car length back. They did not leave the door open. The fact of the matter is that the car's on the racing line. Don't try to make a pass here, but you do. And that is where the dive bombs come in. That is where the Porsches are saying, oh, the prototypes, they're not being, they're being overly aggressive. Prototypes are being overly aggressive and they're diving up the inside. You guys might not think that's a dive bomb. To the prototypes, you're saying, oh, well, they shut the door on me. They turned in on me. They didn't turn in on you. They're holding their line. The prototype is the one that's diving up the inside. So that's what you got to understand, is that that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to dive up the inside. Okay? You want the Porsche to hold their racing line? Let them hold their racing line, but don't complain when they turn in on the racing line. And that quote-unquote door that you think was open, that never was open, all of a sudden is closed. Okay? Similar situation here. Alright? Porsche does really good. HPD, at this situation, you're saying, hey, he's going to pass on the right, on the inside. Perfectly good. He goes to the outside. What does the Porsche do? Track out. Now, is anybody at fault on this one? This is how I would rule this decision, okay? Nobody would be at fault with this. This would be defined as a racing incident. So, could the Porsche have done something differently? Yes, he possibly could have. Could the HPD have done something differently? Yes, he possibly could have. But I see what's going on with both drivers and both sides. Okay? HPD standpoint, they're saying, let me back up just a little bit more. HPD standpoint, they're saying two HPDs just passed this Porsche on the outside. Therefore, the door should be open, in which it should be, and I should be able to pass on the outside. Understandably so. Okay, Porsche standpoint. I stayed to the inside, Porsche's, or the HPD's passed on the outside. I took an early apex into this corner. There is now half a second and multiple car lengths between the purple prototype right here and the one that we're on board with. So the Porsche is saying, I'm going to hold my racing line and the HPD should pass on the inside. So that is why there's nothing going on. HPD's driver standpoint at this point in time, you should be able to say, okay, I might be able to pass on the outside. If that door starts to close, then make sure you go to driver's right immediately. As soon as you see this, he's starting to track out right now. At this point in time, you're automatically saying, hey, I need to go to driver's right. Go to driver's right. Because the door is starting to close. Porsche driver, what you could be saying at this point is, or understanding, and again, I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying it's something to keep in your mind. You know that the prototype is probably going to be somewhat, if you take it as a prototype, is going to be a little bit aggressive. Then you see those two passing, you got to think the prototype might go to the outside. Okay? I'm going to hold my racing line, but if he keeps going out to the outside, I got to try to stop tracking out. Because you can look at the relative right here, that Porsche is not in direct competition with anybody close to him. So if he comes out and he starts going like the HPD does, Porsche needs to let off the gas so they get a little bit more grip and keep turning to allow this overly aggressive HPD driver to pass. So again, one at fault? No. If anybody or anything were to be, I would possibly be a warning to the HPD for being overly aggressive. But again, that is like, I don't even feel comfortable doing that. That's just a racing incident. But that's what you got to be able to do. Okay, same situation here. Porsche on the racing line has already started his turn into the right, and you're another car length back. Okay, another car length back. Why would you attempt to pass going to the inside? Door's not open. There was no door. He was on the racing line. Don't attempt to make a pass. There's the cliffhanger for you. Don't attempt to make the pass. You lose, let's see, what do we have? 0.9 seconds. You're at 0.6. You go to 0.9. So you maybe would have lost 2 to 3/10 of a second if you just backed off a little bit, and then you would have gotten a run on the inside and going out to the outside here. But you probably would have gained it back in the next corner because the HPD has a load of GT cars going in there. Don't be overly aggressive. Just pass them on the exit. Okay, next situation. Yeah, the next situation. Ferrari already pulling alongside to the right here. Now again, this is a cluster because there's cars you can't see. So you have this car is the 82. You have another GT car that's over to the right here, and you have another prototype that's over to the right here. So there's two GT cars that are side by side, and there's two prototypes that are side by side, and right in front of this Ferrari there's a Porsche. And then you have HPD. It's a cluster F going into this situation, into this corner. Okay. Here, HPD, you got to say, all right, that Ferrari is trying to get past that Porsche as much as I possibly can. Okay. The Ferrari stayed to driver's right, even though there's a Porsche there. He stayed there to basically signal, hey, don't pass me. All right. You don't want him to pass you there? That's fine. He doesn't have to pass you there. So don't attempt to make a pass. Why attempt to go in there? That's just being overly aggressive there, saying, oh, he closed the door, he blocked me. He didn't block you, he didn't do anything. He's turning into the corner. If he's going to turn into the corner, fine. But what you should do is just say, I'm not going to pass that Ferrari because the Ferrari is probably going to try to pass the Porsche. If you were to dive up the inside of this Ferrari, you probably would have hit the Ferrari and you probably would have hit it in the Porsche. Or if the Ferrari stayed out wide, the Ferrari would have gone into the Porsche and now you would have screwed the Porsche because the Porsche would be off the track. So don't be overly aggressive here. Simply pass them on exit. Okay, you follow along. You pass the Ferrari on the entry to the corner, perfectly fine. And then you pass the Porsche on the exit of the corner, perfectly fine. Those were good. What's going up behind? Don't worry about it. Now, this situation, somewhat different. I would 100% put the blame on the Porsche. Okay? Was the car that we're on board with a little aggressive? One can argue that, but it was still perfectly clean. Porsche, look at your situation that you're in. You don't have anybody, you're first in class, so you don't have anybody in front of you, and you don't have anybody for at least a second behind you. Okay? Porsche, you track out to the left. As soon as you start tracking out to the left there, you've opened the door. Especially with how close this HPD is. You've tracked out to the left, you're starting to make your line and go off the racing line. You've opened the door for the prototype to come in. Now, you cannot all of a sudden just jerk back to the right. That is a block, that is unaware. If you track out to the left, you're now all of a sudden holding a wider line, which it should have been from the get-go, and you're going to let all those other cars come through. So that is where the GT cars, you need to be more aware on your situational awareness and not be so aggressive. So this would be driving aggressive on the Porsche's fault. Even though that is the Porsche's racing line, you got to understand the situation. Yes, it is the racing line, but you're not in any situation to, you're not in any immediate battle. At least that we know of. You have a second. You know that the car is going faster, and you see a car is right on your bumper as you're tracking out to the left. That close, you're opening the door for them, and you're saying, hey, you can go ahead and pass me. Just let them track it. You can all of a sudden, now you hold the outside line, and you take an outside line going through that corner, and you maybe lose half a second slower, but then all of a sudden you get 1, 2, possibly 3 or 4 cars through you and past you in one corner, and you lose maybe half a second. But instead, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to do it, and I got to jerk off, or not that, but you got to jerk the wheel to try to get back and do everything. Exactly, George. There might be a battle on the alternate strategy. So it doesn't really matter, but that end of the day, that is what happens. That Porsche, as he turns left, that was not over aggressive by the HPD. The Porsche should have stayed out to the left. Should have stayed out to the left. Okay, this situation, we see nothing wrong with this. Porsche's holding his line. You have one HPD go to the right, one HPD go to the left. Okay, next situation, we have nobody for a car. Or for a second rather, behind us. We have Porsche, GT, Ferrari, HPD. Okay, HPD, you do fine. You get a little aggressive or a little bit poking your nose in there, but you're fine. You're not trying to attempt to pass. That Ferrari that's out there, I don't know why you're trying to force a too wide scenario with HPD. Because there, hey, look, there he is. You can see his wheel. You guys disagree with that last one? Let's go back to it. If I can find the timestamp on doing it. Man, I really can't find this timestamp to get it started. There we go. Again, as I said, was it aggressive on the HPD? A little bit, somewhat. But at the same time, he needs to understand and know the situation. Yes, it is too short. I agree with you. Yes, it understeers. Yes, I understand. Yes, I do this. But again, guys, open your mind a little bit, please. That's all I'm asking. Okay? His job is to hold his line, and the HPD was not on his side. Yes, I understand. I understand. I do understand. You guys got to understand that. But when you see, put yourself in the Porsche's shoes, and you guys are all Porsche drivers, I understand it, you get it. But if you're going back to the whole thing of, in order to finish first, you must first finish. In order to finish first, you must first finish. Like I said, Christoph, Christopher, I'm with you. HPD was somewhat aggressive here. Guys, again, HPD was somewhat aggressive here. But let's go back to what I said at the very beginning of this video. The very first thing, in order to finish first, you must first finish. The only thing I would say to do different there is you're knowing that the HPDs are going to be aggressive. Why turn in on them? Okay? If you know the HPD is going to be aggressive, why turn in on them? Yes, I know it's the racing line, and don't use that as an excuse. Why turn in on them? If you're trying to save your car, and you know for a fact, just don't turn in on them. But if you see that they're not making that move, doesn't mean that every single one of them is going to do it. So we're going to move on. So back to this situation. My question is, why would this Ferrari try to be going too wide with this HPD in this situation? You have time to give up. You still got another second. That Ferrari shouldn't really be trying to go too wide. It's making it an awkward situation. Oh, go back, Roar. So, Ferrari, back off. You got a car on your inside. Instead of trying to pass it and run too wide with them, back off and slot in behind. Doesn't matter if the HPD or the GTE try to pass the GTC. Can he pass the GTC? Should he be passing the GTC on the exit of his corner? No. He should not be passing GTC on the edge of this exit of this corner. You're too wide with the Ferrari or with the HPD. You should know that you should be able to pass on the right-hand side, and you're going to eventually pass on the right-hand side. Okay, next situation. Nothing wrong there. Again, I would say HPD. Don't try to be so aggressive and try to make a pass there. Porsche's already turned in. He's already committed. You're still over a car length back. Back off, pass him on exit. You've done it before in the race. Do it here. Don't be so aggressive with that. Now, when we look at this, let's go back. Now look at where the car's placed over here. Okay, that's the normal racing line is out here. Let's just keep that in mind going forward before we do anything else. Or before we go in other situations, whatever I'm trying to say. Good pass. Here. I know you guys are going to say, oh, well, all the HPDs pass on the outside. All the HPDs pass on the outside. Yes, but I've seen HPDs pass on the inside. Porsche, on this situation, you see the HPD passing on the right. You're still not on the racing line. Racing line's right here. Don't pinch the HPD. Use your mirrors. Be situational awareness. Okay? Now this one, CF of all counts on this, but I can guarantee you that I'm going to place 100% blame on this HPD. So when I describe this, I say yes, the track opened up here, but when you look at it from this point of the track all the way up to the curbing here, it opens then closes back up. So in my perspective, from a driver's point of view, anywhere to the left of where I'm moving my cursor right now, that's basically irrelevant track surface. Okay? You have over half a second to work with behind you. Situational awareness. You're not battling for any position. This HPD and this HPD are battling for position, and nobody else is battling for position immediately around you. Now, why in the world would you try to pass on the inside here and force a 4-wide scenario? Just don't get it. This is being the overly aggressive part. Okay, if we go back, if you either backed off and slotted in behind and went behind the Ferrari or behind the HPD, you could have done it. If you even just said, okay, I'm just going to stick behind the Porsche for these next two corners until everything is gone, because you're not in, you don't have a car right on your bumper, you have room behind you, you could do that too. Because if you do not try to pass this Porsche, you're right here. Porsche can make it. HPD can make it. HPD can make it. Ferrari can make it. But we make contact, we go wide, you kind of make contact and do all this sort of stuff. It's too aggressive given where you're at. You should never be going and forcing the four wide scenario. Be patient and stay behind. As you said, George, that is a suicidal move. You're forcing a four wide scenario where two wide is the most that you'd want to go into that corner. And fine, if you're gonna be aggressive and dive up the inside, then you better sure as hell be able to hold the inside line, which you don't do. Overly aggressive there. Next situation. What do we have? So, again, you have nobody behind you for 4.5 seconds. Okay, no car behind you for 4.5 seconds. I think in this situation you have nobody for 4.5 seconds. They told me that this Porsche hit the brakes here. It might have been, hey, I'm tapping my brakes to let you know I'm going to let you pass. Who knows? I didn't see it. I don't have the replay. I couldn't see it. So I'm just going off their word. If he did, fine. If he didn't, okay, then he didn't. Ideally, read the situation. Okay, here, you're blocked in. You're blocked in, you got nobody behind you. Back off, slot in behind. There's no reason for you to keep pushing as hard as you do. My spotter wasn't working. I didn't know I was 3 wide. Tough. That's what the relative block's for, and that's where just having that situational awareness and knowing where cars are around you, or having a live spotter to say, hey, you're 3 wide, you're 2 wide. Got a car on your right, got a car on your right, got a car on your left. So now you go into the other Ferrari. Okay, so you screwed up once. Why not at this point just say, all right, I'm done. I'm backing off. I'm going to slot in behind the Ferrari and just follow the Ferrari through and pass on the exit. Because at this point, you're that Porsche, if he did truly brake check you, or quote-unquote brake check you, or just tap his brakes letting you know he's going to pass, then you should be saying he's probably going to be braking early going into the next corner. And what does he do? Brakes early going into the next corner. You're not realizing it, and then, hey, look at that. You hit somebody else, you get penalized, and you ruin your race. So, next situation, if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, this is when we say, let's hold the racing line. Okay? When we say, let's hold the racing line, and we looked at that other Porsche, and we said the racing line is coming here, coming around to the outside, similar to where this car is, but even if it's one car length over, that's fine, and falling in. HPD is assuming and saying the Porsche is going to hold his racing line. Does the Porsche hold his racing line? No. That is not the racing line for a Porsche. I can guarantee you, you guys can argue with me all you want, but that is not the racing line for a Porsche. Now, am I saying that, hey, what the Porsche did wrong? I can't put myself in the Porsche. He should have stayed over to the right, because for all we know, and like I described to him, from HPD drivers is, there's 30 minutes left in the race. You don't have anyone directly around you. You have a second behind you. You don't have to be so aggressive and try to pass them on the entry of the corner. You could pass them on the exit. So you could do that. At the same time, you could also say that, hey, he is got to hold his racing line. He has to go out to the right. Did the HPD do anything wrong here? Personally, I'd say no. That's on the Porsche. The Porsche did not hold his racing line and was, for whatever reason, not showing or not saying it should or shouldn't be, but he didn't hold the racing line. You could say, is it a don't pass here signal? You could say that, but at the same time, this is one of those corners to where as soon as you start going right, you go left. There's no straightaway here to where you can signal it, because as soon as you end the right-hand turn and you're stop turning right, you're immediately turning left. So it's going from one quarter into another. So you really can't say it is a don't pass here signal, when in reality, you should be able, that Porsche should be able to track out to the right. The HPD will be long gone before that Porsche even turns in. There really, in all honesty, from a Porsche standpoint, there is no reason for you to do it. Why do I say that? Because this is the reason why. They provided this one. Okay? Similar situation, yes. Was the Porsche closer, or HPD closer than the last one? Yes. But HPD tracks out, or Porsche tracks out, and look, Porsche's still on the racing line. That is how it should have been done. If, it can be done for them to pass on the inside. Okay, and they lead into this next situation. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. We already saw that before. Okay, and this one. Now, here's where we say, okay, the door was opened. All right. This is not on, the Ferrari is not on the racing line. One might argue it is, but you got to think, okay, he's not. Okay, let's go up just a little bit. Yeah, he's not on the racing line. That is when you're saying, okay, they're leaving the door open. That is when you're like, okay, now I can pass and I can follow them through. That is great for the Ferrari to be able to do, because you got to think that you have the Ferrari saying, he passed me, I have another one, no one's directly behind him, let's just let it open, let them all go through it one time as soon as I can, rather than being overly aggressive saying, no, I want to take this corner. Me first, I have to go through this corner. If you see a train of HPDs or a train of faster cars going, let them go. Porsche does the same thing. The first one passes, the Porsche stays out wide. He stays out wide and lets the other cars come through. So again, going back at everything that we're saying, you got to be able to finish the race first. You got to be able to finish the race first. If you can't finish the race, then there's nothing I can really tell you. You got to be less aggressive. You got to put yourself first. Everyone has this me first, me first, me first mentality. Well, then take that me first mentality in terms of not me first and going through and having to pass and I deserve the right to this track area. Take it as me first. I want to make sure that I keep my car clean. If you don't keep your car clean, that's fine. You don't have to do it. You don't have to keep your car clean, because I will keep my car clean. In iRacing, the races are a race of attrition. It's not a race of attrition for mechanical things breaking down. It's a race of attrition of who can keep their car the cleanest for the rest of the race. If you wreck your car in iRacing, the damage model isn't fixed to where they replace all the parts and you have a full body and you're up to speed again, more than likely. You're going to be down on speed somewhat. You're going to waste time in the pits. You're going to be out of the race. If you keep your car clean, if you do not damage your car, you will have good results and you will have good finishes. You look at the winners of all of 2017 and all the classes, the cars that were up front might not have been the fastest, but I can guarantee you they were the ones that had the less damage, or the least amount of damage. Okay? You guys just got to be able to get out of this mentality of trying to be as super aggressive and race as if it's the last race or last lap of the race, and be able to start driving more defensively. The more you give on track to other classes, the more the other classes are going to give back to you later on in the race. The more aggressive you are, the least aggressive they're going to be, especially when it comes to slower classes late in the race. Faster classes, if you're aggressive with the slower classes late in the race, the slower classes are more aggressive because they're trying to show you and tell you, hey, do not pass here because you shouldn't be doing it. It's not that they're being over aggressive. They're trying to help you. You're just not seeing it because you're saying, oh, well, I did it before. Why can't I do it now? Even though you did it before, it doesn't mean it was right. If you are patient early in the race, I can guarantee you and I could promise you that it will reflect you in the late stages of the race and late stages of a season, to where the other cars and the slower class cars know for a fact that you are a safe and a clean driver. You're not going to do anything stupid. You're not going to put them out on their race. So then therefore they will benefit you and say, okay, if you are trying to pass in a corner where I usually wouldn't let people pass, they'll let you do it because they know for a fact you're going to do it clean and because you've helped them out earlier on in the race. And exactly like George said, surprisingly, the slower cars are also trying to drive a race. Go back to what I said earlier, the 7 things. No one class race is important than another. No one car's race is important than the other. So that's what we have going on. Okay, we got to stop driving so aggressively. We got to do this. I've provided you, we've been on the air now for an hour and a half. You have probably an hour worth of incidents of what to look at and what to expect and how to drive differently. If you end up and everything that we went through, I'd say 95% of all the incidents, everybody who was watching was pretty much in agreement with what I was saying. Okay? If you drive in that way, the racing will be cleaner. If you keep driving the way that you are driving and you get penalized or you get wrecked out or people don't like you, there's nothing that we can do. At the end of the day, as we are right now, and this is in all of iRacing, it's not within just this league, but all of iRacing. If you want to do better, you have to change yourself. You cannot control what other people do. The only thing you can control is what you do. Change yourself. Change what you're doing. Everything will be better. We're going to have a lot more fun in the series. You'll have a lot more fun in iRacing. You won't be stressed out because you're not going to finish the race because you get wrecked out on lap 5 of a 4-hour race. So that's all that we have. That's all that I got to say. I'm looking forward to the next race. If you guys have any other questions in DGFX about anything within this video, any driving standards or anything like that, you know how to get a hold of us. Just get a hold of us on Discord. That way we can be public, or via email to our email address. We look forward to talking to you guys soon, and we'll see you guys later.